Hello everybody, this is Dr. LaFrance, and I'm going to go through some of the word features that you should be using in order to properly format your papers throughout the program. So I'll begin by using the editor feature. So I'll point out that this is on the Home tab. On the right side, there's the editor, which works similar to other programs like Grammarly. And if you click on this, it'll show, it'll give you an editor score in terms of you can select if this is professional, formal, casual, which is generally be formal for coursework. Now it shows spelling errors, so you can see that there's some mistakes to this paper. And some of these, if you see that it's something like this, you can ignore all of it. So if it's, now here we can see that is actually a mistake, so we could correct it, but I'll correct that a little bit later. Or you can ignore. But the editor feature is something that everybody should be using. I shouldn't be getting papers that have misspelled words throughout the paper. So we'll start off with that. The next thing, as I'll point out, just a little bit to the left here, is actually a dictate feature. So if you're not a very proficient at typing, you might want to use the dictate feature. I find that it's pretty good. What's really important is that you enunciate your words, and it does help if you have an external microphone, like a Yeti Nano, which I use, which is very good. Actually, I'm not using it today. I don't have it with me, but generally, I do use the Yeti Nano as my microphone. So the next thing I'm going to talk about is the heading levels. So if we take a look at this is the Purdue OWL website, and they're covering the heading levels for APA 7th edition. We can see that the level 1 is centered, bold-faced, and title case. Level 2 is flush to the left, bold-faced, title case. So the difference here is just one centered and one is flush to the left. And then for level 3, we have italicized. So it's to the left, we add italics in, and it's also title case. So usually we don't go too much further beyond the level 3, but the other ones that are here in case you need them, and you can see them in practice, what they would look like. Level 1, level 2, and then under participant population we have 2 level 3s. So I'm going to show you how to do this in a paper. So I have some, if I was going to write a paper on causes of teacher attrition, I start to brainstorm my heading levels. What I'm going to do is highlight the first one. I know that I want it to be bold, I want it to be centered, and that's going to be my heading level 1. Now, the headings are up here, and you can see they're not formatted. If I just hang over it, it'll format it in terms of what they have as a default. And it's not APA 7th edition. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over here, I'm going to right click it, and I'm going to update heading 1 to match my selection, which is the causes of teacher attrition the way that I formatted it. So I'm going to update it. So now my heading 1 is properly formatted. Although I'm going to check this quickly because I want to point something out. When I go to paragraph, the default after the spacing is 8 point, which is incorrect. It should be 0. So that's something, and it's also, we want to have double spacing throughout. So I'm going to go ahead and change that as well and make sure that my heading is properly formatted. And that's something that's true for an entire paper. I'm going to show that in the paper in a second, but I just want to point out the heading level. So now, teacher stress, causes of teacher attrition, teacher stress. As we remember from that last document, we wanted bold and on the left, which it is. I'm also going to go and change this down to 010, and now I'm going to right click over here and update my heading 2 to match my selection. So now I've designated the correct formatting for 1 and 2, and from this point, once I've designated it, I can click over text and I can just now left click on top of it, and it'll automatically format as level 2. Here, I just click level 2, and now it automatically starts formatting them for me. And working conditions would also be level 2, and under working conditions we might have student behavior and inadequate facility. So we're going to have bold, we have italics, it's left formatted, we're going to make sure that it is double spaced. Alright, now we have a level 3 heading, and I did not designate, so I'm going to go right click, update level 3, and I want this to be level 3 now too, so I just click here, left click on heading 3, and here we go. So now I've set up my heading levels, and there's a number of benefits to doing this. The first one I'm going to show on a full paper is that we can go to the view screen. So we're at the home tab originally. I'm going to switch over to the view tab, and you see as you do this it gives us a number of different options. And one of the important ones is this right here, and I'm going to add on this navigation pane. So now on the left side I have a navigation pane, and if I go to headings, this paper is 88 pages long. So probably all of you have spent a lot of time writing long papers and then endlessly scrolling trying to get down to the section that you wanted to get to. Part of the reason you're doing that is because you didn't set up your heading levels. If you set up your heading levels, you can see here, let's say I want to go look at my reference pages. I can come to references, and I'm going to left click it, and it'll automatically take me to reference page. If I want to go to the section up here, that's the informed assessment of the school, left click, so I can scroll through the paper to each of the headings very quickly. The other thing is it helps me see the organization of my paper, because the level 1 is left justified, level 2 is a little bit indented, and then we have level 3 is underneath it. So I can see how my paper is organized very well. So having these heading levels helps you just skim through your paper very quickly rather than having to scroll endlessly. One of the other things that it allows you to do, if I wanted to, I'll talk about inserting page breaks in a second, but let's say I wanted to add a table of contents. I can go over to the references section, the references tab, and then I come over here to table of contents, and I'm going to have it automatically add a table of contents for my paper. So rather than, I've seen people that, and now I'd have to format this for APA format, this is not the correct formatting, but you have each of your headings and you have the correct page number on here. I've seen people go through the paper by hand, type in the heading, hit periods all the way across, and then look up what page it was on and then type it, and then when they made edits, they had to go back, add in more periods if they made the title shorter, or delete periods. They had to look up change all the page numbers again, and spend hours and hours doing that. So having this ability to install, basically add a table of contents very seamlessly is very, very beneficial. So those are some of the reasons why you want to do the heading levels. I also recommend that when you have a assignment that's being graded with a rubric, that you align your heading levels with the rubric. So this happens to be the environmental scan paper, and the first section of the rubric is the historical background. Underneath that, it asks for district history, community context and history, and then underneath, let's say school and district history, it has building, district, and school. And under community, it asks for socioeconomic. So I can see that all 5 of these elements are addressed in the rubric, these sub-elements under context. So when you're setting up assignments throughout the coursework, I definitely recommend that you do set up your headings aligned with the rubric, and then make them very easy. And your papers are going to be long, so you're going to want to scroll through them. All right, next thing I'm going to point out is page breaks, which I just showed you. And I'm actually going to show you another feature at the same time. So I'm going to go back to the home. There's this little icon here. If I go and hover over it, it pops up and it says Show Hide. So what this does, it actually shows all the formatting that's going on in the background of your paper. And this is very helpful if you're adding in tables and images. A lot of times the formatting gets wonky and you don't know why, and this allows you to see the background formatting. So a lot of times what people will do is they'll hit, rather than adding in page breaks, here I'm scrolling, rather than hitting in page breaks, they'll hit the enter over and over again. Let's say they wanted to start this on a new page, so they'll do this. And so they have this on this page, the next one starts on the next page. But the problem with doing this is if you add a bunch of content, I'll just duplicate this. Let's say you add it to this paragraph. Now they have all this extra space here. And the reason is because you hit enter, so the enter marks are still there, it just moves everything lower. If I go backwards, so you had the right number here, but then once you started adding in text, it pushes everything down. So one of the ways to avoid doing that is, if you need to start a new page, is you insert a page break. So the places that you want to do a page break generally are at the start of the paper, anywhere where you're going to have something start on a new page. So I'll go back to the top. And here, so you can see we have the heading and then we have a page break, which then automatically starts the next one on the next page. At the end of this, again, another page break. So no matter how long that is, and then the next section usually is the reference page starts on its own page. So this person hit enter instead of doing that. And the issue again would be, as the paper gets longer, you adjust the paper, that reference page would be misaligned. So inserting a page break means that your reference page will always start at the top of its own page. And no matter how much text you add, it's just going to keep moving in. Even if the page break starts on the next page, then it'll just roll it over. So page break is very helpful. And while I'm talking about page break, and we're in our reference section, I'm going to transition to the next thing, and I'm still showing the background formatting. So I can see, as I look at these, that this person did use the hanging indent, which is useful for your reference section. One of the things that I've seen people do, which is a real time, I'll call it time waster, is they'll try to they'll cut and paste a reference from somewhere, and it won't be formatted correctly. So what they'll do is, they know that they're supposed to be hanging indent, so they'll hit the enter mark. Here, they did that here. They'll hit the enter mark here in the middle. So North Carolina Department of Instruction, they hit the enter, and then to get it to look right, they'll just hit the space bar and try to line it up. I'll do another one here. Actually, I think I did. Let's take a look. Yeah. So, and just imagine all these references. So you have pages and pages of references, and you're trying to line them up correctly. And what you're doing is you're hitting enter in the middle and then hitting the space over and over again. And you're trying to split it just in the right spot. So if you don't have the background formatting on and you look at it, you'd say, oh, okay, this looks good. But this person has taken a lot of time to do that, to figure out where do I hit the enter, how many times do I hit the space, and doing it for, you can see, pages and pages of references. Big waste of time, because Word can automatically do the hanging indent for you. So I'm going to correct this and just delete it. And I'll show you how to do this. And these are actually already formatted for the hanging indent. That's why it's showing it correctly. So actually I'll talk my way through a little slower here. So if I right click, I selected the work that I wanted to adjust. I right-clicked on it, I hit paragraph, and now I can see that normally it's set for none. So if there's no formatting, if I cut and pasted this, let's say from Google Scholar, it might look like this. So what I would want to do is, again, highlight the information that I want to use the hanging indent for. I then go to paragraph, and I'm going to, under special, choose hanging. And there's more than one way to do this, but this is just one of the ways that I do it. I don't want to complicate it with too many different ways. So the paragraph is also up here. So honestly, that I right click on it and hit this, but if I also came here, I'm going to get the same window. So and some of the features in the paragraph are up here. So there you go. By using the hanging indent, now it's formatted just the right distance. They're all lined up correctly, and it's a big time saver. And one of the other things I wanted to point out too, earlier I talked about the extra spacing that happens after headings. So as I look at this paper, and I read all the time, so I'm constantly reading APA papers, I can see that the formatting is incorrect on this. And to your eye, you may not notice it because it's so small, but that extra 8 points that comes after is right here. I can see that this is not double spaced. Here they put in an extra space, and then there's the extra double space. Obviously, we shouldn't have this much extra white space on a paper. Same thing here. There's extra space between these two sections. Extra space here. If I just kind of scroll, now I can see, look, double space correctly. So maybe this will help you pick up with your eye as well. I'm trying to train you to do this, but I can see double space perfectly. Extra space. So one way to correct these all at one time is you can hit Control and A. And now what it did is it actually selects the whole paper. And now I'm going to go to the paragraph, and I'm going to format the whole paragraph, the whole paper this way. So I'm going to make sure the after is always 0, the line spacing is always double, and I'm going to hit OK. So now it actually closed these up. It closed that space up. It closed this one up. This one's now correctly formatted. So it did the whole paper at the same time. I can also, if I wanted to change, I want to make sure that my whole paper is Times New Roman font, 12 point. I can adjust that too while I'm holding onto or highlighting the whole paper. So now I know the whole paper is going to be the right font. And if I use this background, I can see here's where my extra enter mark was. Here they had a page break that wasn't necessary, so I'll take that out. An extra mark here that was unnecessary, and I'll hide the background formatting. And now when I skim it, double space is very consistent, and this is what your paper should look like. So there shouldn't be big spaces of white anywhere on your paper. It should be double spaced the whole way through, including the references. So, all right. So those are some of the features that you should be using in Word to get a properly formatted paper. Actually, I think there's one more thing that I didn't point out that I want to talk about. It's actually the Find Replace feature. So this is also on the home screen. And if you wanted to find something specific, you can click this. And if I wanted to find a word, let's say I was looking for management. It'll show me the 11 places that the word management is in the paper. So I can kind of go through the paper and look. And one of the ways that I use this is to check my references to make sure that if there's an author that I used, I can just put the author's name in and I can see, is it in the paper, is it also in the references? So you can take your reference page and do that. Also, if there's something in a rubric and I wanted to see if I use the language from the rubric, I'll put in one of the words. So when I'm grading papers, I'll do that. If I read through a paper and I say, I don't remember that the person discussed school culture, then I'll go ahead and I'll just type in the word culture. and I can see that this person spoke about culture 20 different times, and I can go directly to that word. So the find feature is very helpful in terms of searching the entire document. The other thing is this replace feature. So if I click here, and let's say that I misspelled a word, or let's say I wanted to capitalize a word, and there was a word that I used all lowercase. Let's say I wrote Nevada, and I used the lowercase, and I wanted to switch it to Nevada with capital. So I could just do that. I could just hit Nevada, switch it with the capital, and then just replace all, and it'll switch the caps, the whole paper. So you don't have to go through individually searching for the word Nevada and changing it. It'll do all of them for you at the same time. I've seen one of the reasons way I use this is APA formatting. At one point it was one space, then they switched it to 2 spaces after a period. So before I knew this feature, I actually I spent hours going through a paper and going through every single sentence, and after the period hitting a space bar. And what I could have done is had the period and just hit the space bar one time. So, and switched it with a period with 2 spaces, and I can replace them all. And here you can see it switched 675 sentences that had 1 space, and now I switched to 2. So I can actually fix the whole paper in literally a fraction of a second, compared to going through the entire paper and trying to replace, add an extra space after every sentence. So another way that I've used the find feature, so that's the find and replace. It's just wanted you to know about it. Very useful. I'm sure you'll find some different ways to use that. So one of the ways I use the find feature too, though, is when I'm editing my writing and I'm trying to make it more concise. I use the word the or the very often. So what I do is I look for that word and I try to delete it whenever I can, rather than just saying the over and over again. I'll point out that I just typed in the letters THE, and because I typed in these letters, it's actually searching for the letters THE with no space. So you can see the word there is here, and it's any instance where other, so you have THE and the word other themselves, any instance where there's these 3 letters together, it's going to show that. In order for me to find the actual word, I actually have to put space in it after it. And you can see it dropped from, let's go back again. There was the 3 letters, I think it was 1,363 instances with these 3 letters together. If I wanted just to look for the word the, and I put the space, now it's down to 1,000. So, and then I just kind of walk through the paper, and I go through and I just see any time that I can just delete that word, and just by clicking here, I can kind of I can look at that word. So yeah, just another way that I've used that feature. So there you go. I just wanted to, so those are the features. The editor, which I told you everybody should be using. I talked about dictation, which is very helpful. Setting up your heading levels. And once you do this, it makes it super easy to organize and scroll through the paper. The navigation pane, which I showed you, which is in the view, which is in order to get it on, you turn it into in view. And then we've got, you can also see, you can see it like in a pages format as well. But we get the table of contents. I showed you that. Page breaks, very helpful. Hanging indents, which you use in your references, and then Control-A to grab everything, and then using that paragraph to adjust your text, including removing that extra 8-point that's a default. So there you go. Those are some of the features of Word. Hopefully that helps you as you set up your papers, and you'll use this in every paper that you write. And once you start doing it, it's a huge time saver. So, all right, good luck.